Hello! Hope all is fantastic. More war stories that we're going to go over, especially during World War II. Before the war began, China hired German soldiers to train their men. When Japan invaded in 1937, some of those German instructors were stuck inside China without orders from Hitler. The men agreed that there could be no questioning of leaving our Chinese friends to their fate. The German-trained 88th Division mobilized to protect China. They went out to the front lines at every opportunity and fought fiercely against Japanese troops. When the Japanese reached Nanjing, the Chinese government ordered the Germans to go home, believing they had no chance of defending it. Even so, some in the 88th Division stayed on, doing their best to save their Chinese friends. Most of the Germans who fought in Nanjing died in the battle. According to some stories, though, some Germans survived, escaped into the wilderness, and spent the rest of the war fighting alongside Chinese guerrillas. The fighters, not the ape. Lieutenant Frederick Linfield was a German officer leading a group of riflemen against invading U.S. troops. He was holding his position at the edge of a minefield, daring the Americans to fight, when he heard someone calling for help. Lying wounded in the minefield, a U.S. soldier repeatedly cried out, "Help me." Taking pity on him, Linfield ordered his men not to shoot when the Americans came to rescue him. Hours went by, though, and no U.S. soldier was brave enough to rush for his friend. Finally, Linfield organized a rescue squad and went into the minefield to save the soldier. Tragically, Linfield stepped on a covered landmine and died. There is also no indication that the Americans survived. Still, Linfield died doing something few were brave enough to do, and earned a plaque honoring him from the U.S. Army. During World War II, Romania allied itself with the Nazis. Princess Catherine Cartaja, though, wasn't happy about it. She had spent her childhood in England and didn't trust Hitler's ideas. When planes started bombing oil fields in her country, she took custody of every surviving Allied crewman shot down over Romania's skies. She had them sent to her own hospitals, where they were treated like guests and given the best medical treatment. Once the men recovered, she helped them escape to Italy, which had already been liberated. By the end of the war, she had saved the lives of more than 1,000 men. Before he joined the army, Mario Tonoli was in the NFL. He had also played fullback for the Notre Dame after he enlisted, though he was captured by Japanese soldiers. Before he joined the army, Mario Tonolini was in the NFL. He had also played fullback for Notre Dame. After he enlisted, though, he was captured by Japanese soldiers and forced to march 60 miles. Toward a prison camp with 70,000 other prisoners. Japanese guards confiscated every item in the prisoner's possession, but Maltz didn't want to give up his golden graduation ring. A guard threatened Maltz with a bayonet before he handed it over. Then something unexpected happened. A Japanese officer returned with Maltz's ring in his hand. The officer had studied in America and seen Maltz play. He said, "You're a hell of a player," and also handling the ring back to his prisoner. "Good luck," he said. Maltz still went to a prison camp and suffered horrible from malaria and scurvy as well. Lieutenant Franz Stickler, one of Germany's best pilots, was ordered to shoot down a B-17 bomber. The last kill he needed to earn Germany's highest Medal of Valor, but he didn't do it. As he approached the plane, he noticed that it was flying unusually close to the ground. The rear was riddled with bullet holes, and he could see that the men inside were injured and panicked. Gunning them down now, Stickler decided it wouldn't be a military operation. It would be a murder. Flying alongside the bomber's wings, Stickler signaled to the pilot and flew them all the way across the North Sea, where they could fly to safety, by making sure that German gunmen didn't shoot down the American plane. Stickler saved the men's lives. Curious if that's the same Stickler as in Inglourious Basterds. Castle Idler, a medieval castle in Austria, was used to hold French VIPs as prisoners. Toward the end of the war, it was becoming harder to hold, and the frightened German officers inside fled. When the Germans found out, they tried to take the castle back, but the French prisoners weren't going to give up that easily. They made friends with Kurt Schroeder, an SS officer in the camp. With his help, they took the weapons left behind, sent out a scout to call for help, and prepared for battle. Soon, a small troop of 15 American soldiers and 3 members of the Austrian resistance joined them. In time, word of the fight reached a U.S. battalion that rushed in and saved the day. A trio of British planes ran an attack on a German aircraft and sent it crashing into the Norwegian mountainside, miles from civilization. On the way back, one of the British plane's engines failed. Captain Partridge and his radio operator, Lieutenant Bostock, had to make an emergency landing. Partridge and Bostock made their way through heavy snow and hid out in a hunter's cabin, only to find the survivors of a German plane in the snow. Using broken German, they pretended that they weren't the men who had shot down the plane, and invited the Germans to use the hut. Afterward, sharing breakfast in the hut, Partridge and a German named Strunk went to find help. Unfortunately, a Norwegian man in town shot Struck on the spot, but the rest of the crew survived. Baron Rommel, one of Hitler's most successful generals, spent most of the war fighting in Africa. There, he led the men from the front flank, risking his own life in a way that was uncommon at the time. When he captured soldiers, he ignored orders from the head officer to execute every Jewish prisoner of war. By the time he returned to Europe, he was concerned about Hitler's movements and met with conspirators to remove Hitler from power. Rommel's plot never played out. He was caught by the Reich, who came to his home and gave him a cyanide capsule and a choice: kill yourself with honor or be hanged for treason. Rommel held his family close for the last time, bade them farewell, and swallowed the capsule. Then he stepped into an army car and let them drive him away, waiting for the prison to do its work. Wilhelm Hassenfeld, a Nazi officer stationed in Warsaw, watched the Holocaust unfold before his eyes. The experience deeply unsettled him, and he spent his time scribbling in diaries about the horrific abuse he saw inflicted upon Jewish people and Poles. When the war was coming to a close, he started to do something about it. First, he helped a Jewish escapee named Leon Worm by giving him a false identity and a job. Then he helped a musician named Waltsaw Billman, giving him food and supplies to help him survive. When the war ended, Hassenfeld was taken prisoner by the Soviets for war crimes. The men he saved tried to petition for his release, but they were ignored. Hassenfeld died in a Russian prison camp, suffering a series of strokes. I think that movie, The Pianist, is about that. Very good movie. Captured by Japanese soldiers, Karl Reuss was thrown into forced labor at a prison camp. He suffered and starved while he slaved and soon weathered to a mere 80 pounds. Fumo Nishwaki, a 14-year-old boy working in the factory, saw Reuss and took pity. Whenever Nishwaki had the chance, he took spare scraps of food and fed them to Karl, giving him the substance to stay alive until the end of the war. Karl kept a picture of the boy when he left the prison camp and held on to it until the day he died. According to his family, the boy in the picture reminded him that there was some good in the world. Nishwaki's act of kindness was the one thing that kept Karl sane after the horrors of war. Now, what do you think of these stories? I was very surprised and mesmerized by all these kindness towards people, even during the horrors of war. Anyway, thanks for the subs and the likes. Hope you enjoyed. Have a great one. Bye.